Hey everybody, welcome to the Dad Challenge podcast. My name's Josh. Today we're covering the Labrants and their Big A documentary. Now, of course, as soon as it dropped, I got like 500 messages. You should watch this, you should react to it, you should tell us what's going on. And this is a really tough subject, right? This isn't something you can just flagrantly just talk about in willy-nilly. Obviously, this is not a settled issue, and it's very divisive, okay? So it's almost career suicide to cover a video the way they've done it with the perspective of Christians. I think I haven't even seen it. You're gonna watch it with me for the first time. It's really long, so we're gonna have to like skim through it, talk about my tinfoil hat conspiracy about this whole thing too. So let's go. So before I dive into this video, it's important to note that there's this case going on in Washington, D.C. where this box of, I can't even say the word because I'll get demonetized, okay? A box of terminated pregnancies, okay? Ended up inside this apartment of these anti-A activists, okay? And it's a pretty big deal right now. The cops are refusing to look into it. It's divisive because people are saying that it's a federal crime what has happened. Before we get started, my tinfoil hat conspiracy is that these people, Cole and Labrant, whoever helped them make this documentary, kind of might be aligning in the release of this video with what's going on in Washington, D.C. Now, again, I'm not taking a stance for or against, okay? I'm not going to be that today. You're not going to hear it from me, okay? I have done a video on this previously coming from a church perspective. And if you want to watch that video, go watch it. You'll hear my stance, and you'll hear my stance from a perspective of an ex-pastor, a Christian, who thinks that the church has done it all wrong all these years, okay? So other than that, we're going to go through this. We're going to look at it from the perspective of someone who kind of just sits right in the middle, who's watching this, but also realizes that these two people are some of the biggest hypocrites on planet Earth. So I guarantee you there's going to be moments in this video where I'm going to be like, excuse me? Also, we're going to look at the theology of everything. Let's see if they tap into the theology of it and see where they go with it. But again, my conspiracy is that with this whole thing going in Washington, D.C., I don't think it's an accident that this documentary got dropped in the middle of this massive thing that's going on in Washington, D.C. I know it's a divisive topic. Not all of us are going to agree on that one thing, but I think what we can all agree on before we even watch this video is that these two people probably shouldn't have done this, okay? It's not good for the movement, and it's not good against the movement, okay? Because it's them. That's what I'll say to start this off, but maybe I'll be surprised. I won't be surprised. All right. Now, it says all ad revenue made from this video will be directly donated to local pregnancy centers, okay? But when they took advantage of that cancer patient or those couple of those cancer patients, you didn't see anything like this at the beginning of the video. All revenue made from this video will go to those families or to this cancer research fund. Nothing. They didn't. They took all that money. So right off the top, you guys have to know that these guys are only out to make money. And we know that because they're super wealthy off exploiting their children, which is why I talk about them. Also, they look like brother and sister, which is weird. I don't think that's accurate. Look, I'm not a biologist, but I don't think that's accurate, what we're seeing right now. 27 weeks? I don't know. 38 weeks, which is almost to term, I think you call it.
Has been arguably the most polarizing, heated, and controversial civil rights issue since 1973, when abortion was legalized in the U.S. There is so much passion on either side of the topic, and seems to be no middle ground and virtually no humane conversations.
Up to this point, minus the imagery that is way probably inaccurate, this person who's saying this, which is probably the guy that helped to make the documentary, is correct. This is a very divisive issue. If you look at the topics of the world, okay, over everything, war, famine, everything else, this one issue has been the most divisive issue for the last 40 years than any time ever of anything else. even today. You just don't bring this up at Thanksgiving. It's not a conversation you have with people in passing. It's not even probably a conversation you really have with your friends. Okay? It's so hard to talk about this. It really is. So when I did my video on the church's stance on it, I just said, hey, look, the church has a right to believe that life is life, right? Christians have a right to believe that life is life, and they have a right to believe that life begins at conception, okay? Biology does support it, okay? When it comes to the social things and the sin and all that kind of other stuff, they don't have a right to judge. They don't, okay? It's only God's place to judge people. And so when I did my video on it, I said, hey, churches, why don't you shut your pie holes and start building with all your billions of dollars instead of, paying Carl Lentz to go bang hookers or whatever he did and paying all these pastors to buy Rolls Royces and airplanes and all this kind of shit. Why don't you take your absurd wealth and start building centers for moms all over the US and the world? So you're saying, hey, look, we support pro-life, but we also support birth, and we support mothers, and we support them after it. Because at this point, I've said this in my other video, okay? Churches only just want to see the baby born, and then that's it. Have you ever seen a single mom go to a church and ask for help? Good luck. Except for that one church I almost took a job at in Florida. I wish I knew the name of it. But they actually had a center in the back. And it was a huge daycare, a place where moms could come drop their kids off so they go to work, go to school, they can get fed, they can get groceries and get diapers, whatever they need, okay? That was so impressive to me. And I feel like that sparked my conversation about churches doing this all wrong. You are allowed to have the opinion that life is important and it begins at birth. You're allowed to life is valuable and it begins at you're allowed to have it, okay? Biblically, you're allowed to have that, okay? But what churches and other people like Cole and Sav fail to, grasp, and I did too, before my deconstruction, is that not the rest of the world doesn't live by your standards, your biblical standards, okay, your religious standards. So everything you might have to say on that doesn't translate to them because they are not held to the same standard or account that you are. And that's where the church gets this wrong. That's where Christians get this wrong. That's what makes this so divisive, okay? It's because it's almost like you can't even bring in theology of the Bible into this because those people don't give a shit. They don't live by those standards. So that's why this is divisive, and it's divisive along religious lines because, again, they have this view which is theologically and biblically sound. But everybody else doesn't have that view because they don't believe in the damn Bible or God. So take that.
So much anger and so much hate. In the midst of it all, we truly believe that love is the answer. Instead of pro-life or pro-choice, is it possible for us to be pro-love? Is it possible for us to love both the mother and the baby?
What? He should have said, is it possible for us to love both the person that might have done this and the baby? I think maybe that's what he meant to say. I don't know. But something tells me he's about to, and someone said this, and I know this, they're going to compare genocides and holocausts to abortion.
Maybe the answer isn't either or.
Right here, everybody, look at this slide. You can't do this. I don't care. I know you're trying to get the clicks and everything else. You cannot compare abortion to the Holocaust. This is like comparing apples and handguns, okay? It's completely different. It is like, one is a group of 11 million people who were killed off because of who they were. They were Jews, okay? That has nothing to do with this. So when you do that, you're doing a salacious thing like this because you want people to be like, oh my, they wanted people to be pissed about that. But just stop doing this. If you want to have your message heard, stop comparing everything to the damn Holocaust. Okay, as a person who is a World War II buff and understands a little bit, did a lot of research into that, something I'm very, very interested in, okay? You just let that be its own thing, okay? Because it was an atrocity unlike the world has ever seen before. Okay, let it be its own thing. Stop comparing everything to it. You just don't need to. It's just unnecessary.
But rather both. I have my personal convictions. You have yours. We're all so...
So I'm trying to... I don't know who this guy is, guy who made the documentaries. Just did like Cole fund it and this guy made it? Did they approach Cole? But I don't know. They're talking about this number of A's in the US, and I think it's from the 1970s. I don't think this is like a yearly thing.
Different, and that's okay. But where is God's heart at? Where is the truth and peace amidst all the chaos and lies?
So This is going to be a long-ass video. We can get us started. Sorry. Where's God's heart at? Now, God's heart is at, look what the Bible says about it, okay? And if you believe that stuff, then that's what it says about it. God loves everybody. You are, God breathed in your life. Life begins at conception. That's what God in the Bible has to say about that, okay? So maybe in this documentary, you should just say, a Christian's view of A. That's what you should say. Because those who are on the other side don't care about God's voice in this. It actually might anger them more and push them away even more. So you already lost the argument by bringing God into it. And I know that a lot of Christians would be super angry at me for even saying that, but I'm just trying to tell you what the other side is seeing. You already lost the argument because they don't believe what you believe.
And make a difference instead of just adding more noise to an already deafening discussion.
So you're going to add more noise after saying we shouldn't add more noise. You added more noise. Again, that's why I'm thinking the tinfoil hat is back with this case that's going on in Washington, D.C. I don't think it's a coincidence that this dropped when that happened. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about that because it's a very, very divisive thing, okay? And it's really, really scary. And I almost don't want to direct people to that because there are images and things you'll never be able to unsee. I'm not going to go look, okay? It's crazy. So again, tinfoil hat. There is a connection between them making this documentary, having 13 million followers or whatever they have, and these other activists. I think this is collusion. Not that it's illegal collusion, but it's all tied together somehow, I think.
So what if you're watching this and you're thinking, should I keep my baby even though it's too hard?
What if you're watching this and you said, why are you wearing that?
As a matter of fact, I was in that position. I was 19 when I got pregnant with Everly, and I remember just being so scared.
Let me stop you there, Savannah. No, I think she misspoke here. I give her the benefit of the doubt. She was not in a position to get an A. I mean, hopefully she's saying I was in a position that I had to make a choice. But according to Tommy, okay, and according to Savannah, I think as well, this was planned. Her pregnancy was planned. It wasn't an oopsie. So she shouldn't. Again, this is what they do though, right? They input themselves into situations they've never been a part of. They've never had to choose, right? And they're doing it. They're trying. I think maybe again, I'm going to try to be really, really equal. Like I'm going to try to be really balanced here. I honestly think that they believe in Jesus. They go to a church that believes this stuff, and they said we got to use our platform for good, regardless if it cancels us. It doesn't matter. We have this opportunity to input this thing into the children that watch our show. Don't forget that their show is watched mostly by children and adult men, by the way, because of Everly, right? So I honestly believe that they believe what they're saying. I don't think they're doing this to be salacious. I think they honestly think in their heart that they're doing the right thing. Now, it's up to you to believe if it's the right thing or not. I'm not going to input my judgment on that. But I find it really upsets me when she says something that inserts herself into a situation she's never been in because it was planned. Everly was planned.
I didn't know what I was going to do. I was actually in school and college, and I was too scared to tell my family. I was too scared to tell my friends. It was just
I wish Tommy wasn't afraid to speak up because this is not what I've heard. And again, unless they both come out and say that, unless Tommy comes out and tells the truth for real and just says, this is what happened. It's all alleged at this point. But from what we know and from what people have heard from her own stories and Tommy saying certain things is that this was planned. It was planned. She's lying right now, everybody. A Christian documentary about a serious, serious topic. And the first thing she does, she opens up her mouth and effing lies, allegedly.
A lot for me to take in being so young. I remember those moments just being so terrified of just like what the future would look like, what my life was going to look like. Just so many things going through my head at that moment and just knowing how hard it was going to be, but ultimately in the end, how worth it was going to be.
I'll stop you there. This is going to get a little bit fiery for me. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, it ended real well for you, Savannah. And guys, as I deconstruct my faith, all of these conversations sit in my heart and my brain all the time. What did I believe before? Why has it changed now? Where am I now with this type? Because this is one of the major, most divisive topics of all time. This trans and LGBTQ issues for Christians of all time. But what churches are failing to recognize is that sin is sin is sin is sin. And I'm going to say this every single time I talk about this type of thing. If you get pregnant out of wedlock, Savannah, that's sin. Okay? If a woman has an A, the church and the Bible would consider that a sin, right? But both of those sins to God are the same. Not one carries more sinful repercussions than the other. They're the same. And what the church fails to do is talk about sin as it's a blanket thing. Generally, they do. And they do it because there are hot button topics that they won't talk about, or they will talk about too much, or they put too much weight on, or they judge over harshly than judging other sins. But I need to tell you guys this. I need people out there who might feel guilty for doing something like this, or who feel guilty for any kind of sin in their life. But you got to realize, in God's eyes, sin is equal, and everybody does it. So it doesn't matter what the thing is. If you've broken that trust and you've sinned, it doesn't matter what it is. But the church holds way more weight on certain things, and it shouldn't, because it makes the church really hypocritical. So this document is called Can We Love People? And I always say that. That's where I've landed after church. It's where I've landed after religion, is that instead of judging people for something that they have done, the only thing that I'm really called to do, and I do honestly believe this, is to love you, right? I know people are going to be like, oh, you don't love people who exploit their kids. No, I don't. It's like, yeah, I'm going to call you out for it. But if you were to do a total 180 reversal on that thing in your life, man, I've promised I'll delete everything about you and I'll be like, celebrate you. But if you're actively doing something that's hurting someone else, I mean, it's just a little bit different for me. So, but I get that. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect Christian, because I'm not at all. Again, if you're hot or cold, or if you're warm, I would prefer to be cold at this moment in my life. And that's kind of where I am right now. So something I'm wrestling with, but I still have over half of my life with church and religion embedded into every ideology that I've ever had. And so I just need people to realize that that's one thing that I've come out from this whole thing with, is that it doesn't matter what you did, and everybody has done something. It is equal. But the fact that they're making a 40-minute documentary about this, it's not equal. Are you going to make a 40-minute documentary about gossip? You going to make a 40-minute documentary about exploiting children? Because that's a sin. Okay, for the lies that you've told on your show. Oh, look, the fire's coming from the mountain. That's a pretty big lie. Okay? You guys have sinned publicly more than probably anyone has ever privately. And are you going to do a 40-minute documentary on that? That's the problem with the church. They'll create a 40-minute documentary, or they'll preach 10 times out of the year on this one thing, but won't talk about anything else. It's got to make you think.
Looking back now, I know for me personally, my choice was always to keep my baby, but I also know that for others.
So, okay. So you said, so she just said she was struggling with choice, and then she said, no, it was never a choice. So
there are choices. I'm
going to be fast forwarding through all like the family montages with the music that's supposed to move you, because it's the biggest hypocritical thing that these people could be sitting here talking to you about. Like, they want to tell you that this is wrong, that A is wrong. They believe that. They do. But in the same moment, right after they say the thing, you see them exploiting their children on camera for money. The Labrants' wealth, all of it, has come from Everly. All of it. The people come to that channel for the children. Everly being the main one for the last few years. Okay, we did tons of videos on it. So I cannot listen to you. I cannot watch videos of you trying to virtue signal while you're literally sinning the moment after you talked about something like that.
In America, over 2,000 happen every day.
Every day in America, 100 people die in car accidents. 1,300 people die from smoking. 1,800 people die from heart disease, the leading cause of death in the US, according to the CDC. But there's another, even more deadly killer than heart disease.
By definition, is when a pregnancy is ended so that it doesn't result in the birth of a child.
So as we've been filming this documentary, we've been asked by our friends, by family, by mentors, why are we making this? So there's so much at risk. Why are we even making this? Why are we adding flame to an already crazy burning fire?
Fame. Guys, I know that so many people are already pissed at the Labrants for doing everything done. Look, I don't think the Labrants know, or they do, and this, I think they do. I honestly do think they do, but in every YouTube span, there are people who outgrow the content. Right now, I honestly believe that the fans of the family vlogger content have outgrown it. You're seeing view counts somewhere below 70% of what it was even a year and a half ago. That's a big deal. These kids are growing out of it and they're moving on to content, right? I mean, there are still some who have lots. I mean, there's still people growing on TikTok like Maya Knight and other family vloggers who are copying Maya Knight, even ones with twins and everything else trying to do it. So TikTok has kind of restarted it to a different degree, but it's not vlogging. Most of those people are showing you 30 seconds of them filling a bottle or, you know, shaking their kid or whatever. It's crazy. But it needs to be said that the Labrants came into this 7 years ago, something like that, 6 years ago, and grew enormously because of his Vine life and all that kind of stuff. And I think her Musically or Everly's Musically channel, that whatever. All that to say is that I honestly believe that people have grown out of it. And so what they're doing now is trying to become, how do you say this? They're honestly trying to just become like the Republican right-wing family vloggers, unapologetically, not afraid to talk about all that stuff. And they're willing to sever anybody who doesn't believe what they believe. They're willing to do that because they honestly know that growth will come the other way. Like they will have a short-term huge loss for a long-term huge gain. Because I promise you, conservative commentary and everything else on the internet is at an all-time high and it's only growing. And so they might say, look, we're gonna take a hit, but they're doing this on purpose. That's what I believe. Okay, they're just drawing their line in the sand, and they're just like, okay, we're gonna go full on this way, and we're gonna gather those fans and those people, and we'll grow from there. That's what I think.
And the answer is just if one baby is saved from this, if one mom chooses to keep her baby from it, then it's all worth it. Mm-hmm. This documentary by no means is trying to illegalize abortion. After this documentary, you're still going to have the choice. Yeah. You're still going to have your choice.
Thanks.
But I know that there's going to be one mom watching, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 100, maybe 1,000. We have no idea the ripple effects.
But just for you guys to know all the resources out there, and also for us as a church and just me and
us as a church?
Well, even just that, how much more.
Are they calling themselves the church? What? I mean, are they saying like as church goers, as like people who go to church, we should all come together? Like, I mean, honestly, not gonna lie, that is what the church is. It's not a building with like Joel Osteen in his teeth, right? That's not what it is. A church is a gathering or a group of people coming together in Jesus' name. You could have a church in the forest if a few of you get. A church is not a building. So, okay.
Or we need to be doing.
We want to go into this finding out what resources are available for women that you might not know about. Are there resources?
Why do they always do this too? That you might not know about? Do you know that we live in the age of information? In this thing right here, you type in the thing, you'll get all the information you need. This is just another one of their icky things I don't like about them, is that they take on this like white savior role or savior role in general. Hey, maybe you didn't know about all these things. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I have done work for a pregnancy center here. I actually I'm going to go donate some stuff on Monday when they open. But there's a pregnancy center here that's local that is considered a Christian pregnancy center. I'm not going to say which one it is. But they don't just give you options for the Christian viewpoint of what you should do with your pregnancy. They will give you all the options. And I'm pretty sure all of the police people by law are supposed to. Now, I could be wrong because I've never been in that situation. And I know this is a divisive topic, but I know that this specific one that is funded almost exclusively by Christians gives the option for everything. So I want to hope that everybody gets the option. So again, I'm leading to I'm coming back I'm circling back to the point that they're trying to be like, look, we were just going to give you all the information you need. Thanks, Cole. Thanks, Viner. Maybe I'm clutching my pearls, but at the same time, I'm thinking it's just not your responsibility, Cole. This is not something you should have done. This is not your place. I don't know that, but it is, because everybody's allowed their opinion too, right? So I struggle with that. I struggle with it, but my opinion on it then is that they are just trying to be like, do what we tell you to do. Maybe you're missing these things. And they do have a young audience.
No, in your city, if not, is there something that the church should be doing, that you watching should be doing? Maybe you aren't pregnant. Maybe you aren't the one facing the question of whether I'm going to have an, but you're thinking, what more can I do? How can I?
Also, I got to point out this thing. They said all the revenue generated from this, it just came to me right now. All the revenue generated from this film is going to go to pregnant centers. I guarantee you, YouTube demonetized this shit as soon as that first A word. I don't say it, and I'm going to blank it out from their video. As soon as the topic comes out, unless they can come out and say, look, it's monetized, I guarantee you this video is not monetized. If I even say the word, I get demonetized. YouTube doesn't, it's not even YouTube that doesn't like it. So YouTube has all these advertisers that come on and say, we're going to pay you a bunch of money. Under no circumstances do we ever want to be connected to any videos that talk about anti or pro A, first of all, guns, sure. Anything kind of political, the advertisers say, it's not YouTube's fault, but the advertisers say, don't put me on any of that content, right? We don't want to be associated with it, because they are allowed to say that. And I'm allowed, as a content creator, I think I'm allowed to, I haven't tried it, but you can go in and say, I don't want these types of advertisements on my channel, right? It goes both ways. But as soon as this word pops up in the algorithm, in the checking at the back end of YouTube, guarantee you, yellow $sign. So they might make a little bit if they've got a lot of channel members, which I don't know if they do or not. I doubt it. And people who subscribe to YouTube subscription service, like if you pay for YouTube to get no ads, they'll get a cut of that revenue, right? So I guarantee you, for the main revenue that they would normally make on a video that's just about their kids, nowhere even near, not even 4% of a normal video. So maybe they'll make a little bit, but it's nowhere near what they would normally make if this wasn't this video.
Better help. How can I better stand with these women and for these women? So we're going into this thinking, how can we help more? What more can we do? And I'm excited to find out.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, Cole. Let me tell you what you guys can do. Are you ready? Got your listening ears on? Your tiny listening ears, Cole? You guys are wealthy, right? So I hope in this video documentary, they say, you know what? We took some of our enormous wealth that we made off of our kids. Enormous wealth. These people have made millions of dollars, everybody. I'm not joking. Millions of dollars, okay? And what can you do is to make a documentary that pisses a whole bunch of people off and puts you into a super negative like ratio, that's not really going to help anybody. It might, but what could you really have done, Cole, is take some of your enormous wealth, and maybe they have, I don't know. Maybe they give and don't tell anybody. But why don't you go and build a center for these moms, or give $1 million or a huge chunk of your money to any of these places? Instead, you're going to make one video that's going to be partially monetized to a tiny degree and give that away. Why don't you give 90% of your wealth away to any of this? Then you know what? Then I'll bow to you and I'll say, congratulations, you're a saint. I believe everything you say on this now. But they're not going to give. They're not going to make anything hurt. They're not going to put any skin in the game at all. They're virtue signaling, everybody, for Christians. Virtue signaling exists across the plane. For Christians, it means like you might donate a backpack to the backpack driver. Make sure you see people putting, oh, look, I'm putting this food in the food bank box, everybody, hey. Or you volunteer at the church because you want to be, Christian. And I'm not saying they're all like that, but I'm saying a big chunk of people are like that. They want you to see how virtuous and giving they are. That's virtue signaling in the Christian world. On the other side, virtue signaling is like, it's the current thing. You're going to put the black square in your thing. You're going to put the Ukraine flag. You're going to put the, the pronouns in your bio and all the things. That's also virtue signaling. And some of it's good, some of it's bad, because I think a virtue signal might encourage others to maybe to follow what you're trying to do. So it's good and bad, but make no mistake, it's virtue signaling all the same. Okay. My wife hates when I say virtue signaling, but it is what it is. That's what they're doing right now. Unless you put your money where your mouth is and you can prove it because you're public, then I don't want to hear anything. Because you just said, I wonder what we can do. I just told you what you can do. And I told you what you could do when you faked being a homeless guy. And the cancer thing and everything else you've done to make money off people. You guys are just gross. If you want to do something, do something. Jesus said to that really wealthy dude, right? Guys like guy went to Jesus, and I'll say this every time. It seems to come up a lot when I talk about rich people. But he came to Jesus and he said, Jesus, man, what do I got to do to follow you, man? Like, can you give me the inside scoop? And Jesus said, man, you are not going to like what I'm about to tell you. Sorry, dude. But if you really want to follow me with all your heart, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. Then come on, let's go. That guy's heart was broken. It's hard to do that for anybody. And virtually nobody does it. Bill Gates, I think, isn't even a Christian, probably an atheist, gives most of his money away. He's the only person on earth that does that kind of thing. Okay? Most rich Christians, like I'm talking publicly rich Christians, and most of them are pastors, don't give any of their wealth away. The Christians I know that give most of their wealth away, you will never know their names. And that's how it's supposed to be. But these people who sit here and virtue signal, if you're going to virtue signal, then virtue signal is saying, you know what? We personally donated $2 million of our own wealth to this pregnancy center that has, in this place that has the highest rate of A's. And so we're going to start our own center, and you're going to come and we're going to give you free education. We're going to pay for your bills. We're going to give you groceries. We're going to give you diapers. We're going to give you daycare. We're going to give you every advantage that the government will never give you, because the government doesn't care about you. Neither do churches. But we're going to give you every effing advantage, and we're going to show you how to manage your money, and we're going to help you get out of debt. And if you did any of those things, then you'd have a leg to stand on, but you don't. Okay, there are churches who do it, and they need to be celebrated. There are organizations who do it, and not even Christian. They need to be celebrated. This needs to become something we all do. This needs to become the next challenge. Maybe get together with a bunch of people who are wealthy and start these things yourself. If you have money, it's easy to get these things going because you have power. And these people of 13 million subscribers, why would they not start a center and then use their massive connections and wealth and media and followers and sub counts and everything else, the power that they do have, to lobby like Johnson & Johnson and diaper companies and baby food companies and everything else, to say, hey, we're starting this crazy center. Can you donate it? And then look how much free advertisements you get for that. And people will love it. Right? They don't think of that shit. They just want to make a documentary because he wants to make films. This is just Cole diving into making films.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So what happens during it?
Oh, shit. They're going there? I'm not sure I'm going to show you guys this stuff. We'll see.
Practice, I performed just under 1,200 abortions, including first and second trimester, up to 24 weeks of gestation.
So I feel like one of the most important questions that
if you're gonna make a documentary, okay, you got whatever cameras you're using are shooting log, and you got it all going. Buy some GD lav mics.
everybody asked is, when does life begin? And if we had a direct answer, then I feel like this wouldn't even be a conversation, because if we could all agree that life began at a certain point, then it would be allowed before that point and not allowed after. In your professional opinion, when... No,
that's your opinion, Cole. You just said you guys are... You said you weren't going to have an opinion on this. That's your opinion. Again, all you have to say is, as a Christian, I believe life begins at conception, because that's what the Bible says. I mean, I honestly believe that's what biology says, but I could be wrong. I'm sure some of you guys will say in the comments now that I'm a Nazi for saying that, but I'm pretty sure that's what biology says, that life begins at conception. But I guess people will have different views on that based on their either morality or their own take on biology and all that kind of stuff. So again, I'm not saying I'm super educated on it, but what I've grown up to believe, and again, taking the Christianity out of it, what I learned in high school and everything else, was that life begins at conception based on biology. Now, I'm not taking that stance. I'm just saying that's what they believe. And so he says, well, that's the case. If we can all agree on that one thing, then we can all agree that it's not right after that. But even those who believe that life might begin after, sentient thought, or the fetus can feel pain, or whatever case may be, they still will say, no, you can still do the A. So your argument is flawed there, because some people will argue for like A's to the point of being born, right? And so they have their stance on that, but that's not a Christian stance. And so you cannot use that to argue it. So I don't know where they're going to go with this.
When would you say life begins?
It's such a simple question with such a complicated answer.
Why does he have a lav mic, but Cole and them are in the forest?
A human egg is fertilized by a sperm, and that is a single cell organism that has a unique genetic makeup. That is the first.
Why do you play the frickin' Hillsong? Dun, 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 sperm, I didn't pull out, and so here's my sperm. Like, you just don't put the music. It's just, again, they're trying to make a documentary, and this is where, you know, as a person who does make films myself too, and has videos and has done this in the past and has done this for churches, I understand the power of music, the power of putting this over. It's called going to church, right? But if you're going to make a documentary on something that you think that you're being balanced with, don't do this, because that just makes you biased.
So at fertilization, you have a living cell that has that unique genetic pattern. So on that basis, human life begins at fertilization.
Yeah.
But a lot happens after that. It gets complicated. But I really do believe that a human life, that individual human being with that unique genetic signature starts at fertilization.
Again, this is what biology tells us. And I know people are going to be super upset for that, but I mean, again, those who are upset for me even believing that, because that's biology as far as I'm concerned, I'm not even talking about the Christian side of everything. You shouldn't be upset about that, because I don't think that you even care that that's when it begins, because most people will say it doesn't matter. Those who are on the side of getting A's and all that kind of stuff and will go for their, you know, you have your opinion, but I think you just need to just be like, I don't care when life begins. It's still the choice of the mother to do what she wants with her body. And I think that's sort of where a lot of people will stand. But by not answering that question, by saying, you know, being elusive about it, or calling it a clump of cells or all that kind of stuff, or whatever you say it is, you lend your argument to Christians. I'm not trying to give you advice or anything. I'm just saying that doesn't make your argument coherent based on biology and what most doctors would believe, okay, and what people who are educated will say. So all you really have to do is just stand on your values and say, look, it's the woman's right to choose what she's going to do with her body, and just stay there. What they're going to say is that you used to be pro-biology, now you're not pro-biology. And that's a stance that a lot of people are starting to move on now.
People think of doctors as so smart. We're no different than anyone else. When you figure out here, not here, that killing a baby this big for money is wrong, it doesn't take you too long to figure out it. It doesn't matter if the baby is this big or even this big. It's all the same.
I love what Dr. Levatino said, that whenever we start saying, like, at what size is it a human baby, it's like, well, what size is a human? You know, whenever you realize that a baby this big, and this big is a baby, it doesn't matter if it's this big or this big. Mm-hmm. You know, the tip of my finger, but we saw little arms and legs on our ultrasound.
And the baby was moving around.
The baby was moving.
And she's resting.
Again, you believe the baby is a baby, like, in that position. And so, but you, again, as, I don't know how much I have to say this, but as Christians, I think a lot of you guys have to realize that not everybody believes it that way. And that's why this is always going to be divisive. It's never going to be settled. And it makes you guys, it just bugs me, because you argue on that stance, that Christian stance, and yet your whole entire existence otherwise is completely false, is completely living heretically, diametrically opposed to what God commands us to do with our children, which is protect them, is to honor them, to feed them, to help them grow, to bring them up, and not use them for money. I wish the Bible said it. I wish there was a scripture. Maybe there is somewhere you can maybe proof text it. But there's no way I believe that. I think God is cool with people doing what they do with their kids like this. I can't see it. It makes me angry. I think one of the things I don't talk a lot about, because I just don't believe you guys really care, is that, yeah, a lot of these family vloggers, and I'm saying a lot of them, I'm saying the majority, 60% more maybe, are Christian, right? They are. And yet they'll, like, look at Our Life. They call themselves devout Christians, but look how they live otherwise. No way. You can't do it. And if you wonder why the church has fallen apart at the seams, is because it's people like that on the internet saying they're Christians. People like this on the internet saying they're Christians. The church is falling apart completely. And I'm not just talking old Hillsong and Elevation, all these other churches. It's worldwide this is happening. Because we've transferred from being about God to being about self every step of the way. And when you can justify exploiting your children for money and then coming out with Christian statements and values, you've lost the plot. And you've lost thousands of people.
So I feel like a lot of people watching or listening might not know how form, you know? I think you hear pro-choice and it sounds right because it's like, oh, well, the mother should be able to decide whether to keep or not keep. But they don't understand what not keep means.
No, people know. Again, I'm going to cut out all this stuff about this because I really want to just focus on Cole and Sav's argument for this, like their portion of this video, because every single time I want it to come back to the fact that they're hypocrites. And I actually don't want to put this out on my channel, to be honest with you, because I'll be struck too. So this is my different take on this video. Like, I'm trying not to really have a crazy stance either side. And again, my opinion on A has evolved almost 180 degrees since when I was a pastor. Okay. So that's all I'll tell you. And I think it's not really has to do with sin or anything. It just really has to do with, I think, the real way that we're supposed to treat anybody. So I will be cutting half this shit out.
I had no idea that's what went on first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. And I feel like it's so necessary for people to know.
Yeah.
Because I think that if this is what's going to happen, the media and news outlets and people can just downplay it.
Yeah.
No, I think... So what he's saying is, because I'm not going to show you what they talked about, but they walked you through how an A is done. Okay? And don't forget, like... These are the same type of people. They would be completely against the bill that was passed in Florida about not being able to talk to kindergarten to grade 3 about gender theory or LGBTQ issues or anything like that, right? They would be completely against the Florida government passing that law, right? But they have the same age group, maybe a little bit older, on their channel, and they just showed in graphic detail how that's done. Now, I understand what you're trying to do, but it's not appropriate for small kids either. Because 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old girls don't need to know about this. Okay? And also, if you do go get one of these things at any of these clinics, I'm pretty sure they have to tell you how it's done. I could be wrong, but I hope they do. And so it should not be lost on everybody that the same people would be against talking to kids about that stuff would also be cool with talking to kids about this, and it's not age appropriate. I don't think so anyway.
And even with like the little bit that I did know, just hearing it from him and hearing his stories and just the details of it was such a different experience, just hearing him say that, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it opens up your eyes, you know? Like, you hear the word of and I feel like it's become so normalized, and I'm glad that we can have conversations about it, but like, where's the truth at?
Yeah.
Well, the truth is, here's someone who's performed 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
You know, instead of...
yeah, but then there's truth of somebody who's performed 20,000 of them who still honestly believes that it's right. So Cole is standing here with Savannah, and they're saying, well, here's a guy who said it, so that's the truth. But I'm sorry, that's not how it works. I mean, that's how Christians would like it to work. I'm sure that's how non-Christians and secular people would like how their logic to work too. It's both sides. Listen, people, your logic is going to not work that way because there's half the population that thinks this way and half the population that thinks this way. So I guess what they're doing is what Christians and secularists have always been doing, is fighting over the middle and always being divisive on the topic and never settling on a point. Because it will not be settled. And I think he thinks this documentary will settle the debate on A and Roe v. Wade. It's not going to settle the debate, Cole, because look at you guys, you hypocrites. You cannot bring, if you really, really, really are passionate about pro-life, it's almost like you got to take religion out of it. Right? If I was going to give anybody advice on this type of thing, and maybe it's not my place to, not going to work anymore, everybody. Because look at the state of the church right now. Okay? Are you really going to take advice from a church like Hillsong, or any of these mega churches that have fallen, of pastors who have like major moral failings? Are you really going to sit there and think, you know what? That's a church that I can trust, even though they're falling apart at the seams. Like 10 pastors have stepped down. Their main starter of this, Pastor Brian Houston, has stepped down for his moral failings and the things he's done and the things that his dad has done to people. You really think that you have a moral stance here? And that's why I honestly believe, and this isn't tinfoil hat, this is biblical. I honestly believe the church is where it's at right now, And it's designed by God to be like, I'm done with this bullshit. God wouldn't say that, but you know what I'm saying? So using your perspective as Christians, even nowadays, carries even less weight than it did before. Like, way less weight. Because look at our churches, look at our leaders who preach pro-life, but live otherwise. And how many pastors do you think have paid for A's themselves? For their daughters, for their sons, for their mistresses?
Someone telling you, what they think it is. Like you hear all these different, I don't want to say lies, but you just hear all these different variations of what an abortion is. Well, let's just go to the source.
Yeah.
And you go to the source and it's like, okay, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the source of all knowledge on this. Is that what you're telling us? That's what you want us to believe? Cole, you don't get to sit there with your smug little look and grin like that. That's not true. You wish it was, and a lot of Christians do, and I'm sorry it's not. Because there's a lot of Christians that follow this channel too. And there's a lot of people who are not Christian, who are very not at all, who follow this channel too. And that's why I'm trying to present this kind of an even kill. But it's just, sorry, Cole. Nope, you can't. But the problem is the young people that follow you will take what you just said there, and that's definitive for them.
So here's a crazy thought. I would not be here today if my grandma did not choose life for my mom. As a matter of fact, her story is wild. I sat down with her to talk about it. You're about to hear it, but her story is so beautiful because it shows the generational impact of choosing, yes, I'm going to keep this baby.
All right. His grandmother made the choice to keep him. That's weird. Okay, I'm sure it's going to be great. But, okay, we're already 50 minutes into this video, so I'm going to have to do a part 2 tomorrow. I'll be wearing the same thing as I'm going to keep going after this, but I can't expect you guys to watch a 2-hour DCP video. I want you guys to be here for this. This is an important conversation about the hypocrisy of these types of people. Okay. Not even a conversation about A or anything like that. It's the important conversation finally that these people are being called out for their hypocrisy. And most people are just going to be super upset and angry about them just coming and doing this because they don't want them to talk about it. But my tact is different. I'm going to tell you that it's high time that these people get off their damn high horses and stop thinking that they're saviors of some kind. Because you just made it worse for everybody. You just made the argument on the side of Christianity way worse because all of your arguments are garbage here. I hate that I'm even sitting here having to tear apart their arguments on that. Does that make sense? Because, again, it's divisive in every single way. I need to keep reminding everybody of their hypocrisy. Because you can stand here and look all innocent and think you're being, awesome for God, when in the end, your entire channel, wealth, life is built off of sin. So, everybody take a deep breath. Hard one. I know it's going to be... These videos are so difficult to do, everybody. Wow. But I want you to remember that no matter what is going on in your life, what you've ever done, that don't ever let people like this make you feel guilty for anything you've done or are considering doing. Okay? Or Christians in general, or secularists in general. You got to do what you got to do, right? For your health, your safety, and your life. It's not for anybody to judge you either. Me, Cole, Sav, anybody. Anybody on the right, anybody on the left. It's not for anybody to judge you at all. It's one thing I've learned really, really harshly over the past 3.5 years since I left the church. I just imagine you were just there for everybody like you're supposed to be. That's the message. And there's so far they haven't gotten there. Maybe we'll get to that in the second half, but I highly doubt it. Everybody, don't forget your value and your worth, despite everything that's coming at you on all sides at all times. Everybody has inherent value, every single person. And if we remembered that, if we honestly thought that way about everybody, we'd be in a better place. Twitter wouldn't exist for sure. But I will see you tomorrow for part 2.